The morning after burned in her skin. Zina stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, wrapped in only a towel, her neck marked with the evidence of what they'd done. She had told herself it was a mistake. A lapse. But even now, remembering the way Coreed moved against her, slow, intense, commanding, made her thighs press together involuntarily. It wasn't supposed to feel that good. He wasn't supposed to be the one. She splashed cold water on her face. "You're not falling for a damn driver," she warned her reflection. "You're in control. You always have been." Downstairs, Coreed acted like nothing happened. He stood by the car with his hands behind his back, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, lips straight. But his mind was chaos. He could still taste her. Still feel her body trembling under his. And yet, the closer he got to her, the more dangerous the lie became. Zina didn't know he was the same Coreed Odebanjo whose face graced business magazines. The silent investor in her father's company. The man who had enough power to buy the mansion she lived in. And the world around it. He came here to conquer her, but now, he was trapped between the thrill of the chase and the ache of something real. He had to be careful. She wasn't just fire. She was the flame he could lose himself in. The tension that day was unbearable. In the car, silence reigned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was sexual. Charged. Her legs crossed and uncrossed more than necessary. He adjusted the mirror too often. When he opened the door for her at a client's meeting, her fingers brushed his, too soft to be an accident. Later that night, the mansion was dark. Everyone asleep. Zina paced her bedroom in a sheer lace slip, restless. She picked up her phone twice. Put it down. Then finally, barefoot, heart racing, she stepped into the hallway and descended the servants' stairs. She found Coreed in the laundry room, shirtless again, folding linen like a choreless god. He turned when he heard her, his chest rising slightly. Her eyes lingered. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low. She didn't reply, just closed the door behind her, locking it with a quiet click. "You didn't call," he added. "I don't take orders," she replied, walking up to him. "And neither do you, apparently." Their mouths collided with no warning this time. Desperate. Heated. Her nails raked his back. His lips crushed hers. She climbed onto the counter, wrapping her legs around him like she needed him to breathe. Clothes slipped off, whispers filled the small room, moans swallowed by stolen passion. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was need. And when it was over, when they both stood panting in the dim light, Zina pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "What are you doing to me?" Coreed didn't answer. Because the truth was starting to scare him too. What began as a game was no longer just seduction. He wanted her. But he hadn't told her who he truly was. And soon, the truth would demand to be heard. The days that followed were chaos wrapped in silence. Zina barely recognized herself. She no longer barked orders or threw passive insults. She tiptoed through her own home like it was Coreed's presence that ruled the air now, not her voice. Her body remembered him, even when she tried not to. Every night she told herself it was the last time. Every morning, she burned with the shame of how much she wanted him again. But her mind was catching up to what her body ignored. Who are you really, Coreed? Meanwhile, Coreed's dual lives were collapsing into each other. At night, he answered calls from boardrooms and strategists under the name Coreed Odebanjo, billionaire investor. By day, he played the role of the silent, obedient driver. The weight of his secret grew heavier, especially when he stood inches from the woman who now haunted every thought. He couldn't keep this up. Not with the board of her father's company pushing for a merger. Not with Zina so dangerously close to his truth. And then it happened. Zina's father returned home early. Chief Okoye, stern, calculating, and old money traditional, was a man who missed nothing. The moment he stepped into the house, the air shifted. Zina stood straighter. The maids moved faster. And Coreed felt the gaze of a man who had once shaken his hand in a private meeting, now scanning him like a stranger. That night, over dinner, Chief Okoye spoke of a potential merger. "One of our biggest silent shareholders will be visiting this month. Coreed Odebanjo. A ruthless businessman. Brilliant mind. I want you to meet him, Zina. He's your age, and unmarried. The wine glass slipped slightly in Zina's hand. Coreed, watching from the far side of the room where the drivers waited, stood frozen. Her lips parted. Her hand trembled. She said nothing. But her eyes met his. And in that moment, she knew. She stormed into the garage after midnight, barefoot and wild-eyed. You used me, she hissed, slamming the door behind her. No, he said quietly. I hid. But I never used you. You, her voice cracked. You're Coreed Odebanjo? You lied to me every single day. I had to. You wouldn't have let me close if I hadn't. And what exactly were you planning? To sleep with me and then what? Buy my father's company? Brag to your rich friends that you conquered the untouchable princess. He stepped forward, firm and calm. I didn't fall for a company. I fell for you. Not the rude heiress. Not the spoiled girl. But the woman who came to me in the dark, without pride or mask. The one who kissed me like she needed saving. I'm here because I needed to see her. Zina's breath hitched. Her anger crumbled, layer by layer, giving way to something far more dangerous. Hurt. You broke me open, she whispered. Then stood there with secrets in your mouth. He reached out, but she stepped back. I want you out of this house by morning. He left. But the ache didn't. Not in her chest. Not in his. Because now, everything had changed. The house felt colder without him. Zina sat alone in the back garden, the same place where rain once soaked her skin and desire first kissed her throat. But tonight, there was no storm, just silence, and the aching hollow Coreed had left behind. She hadn't told anyone. Not even her closest friend. No one would believe that the man she'd mocked, kissed, touched, had been hiding a billion-naira name behind a driver's uniform. And worse, no one would understand why it hurt this much that he was gone. Her pride should have protected her. But instead, it punished her. Across the city, Coreed stared out his penthouse window, suit jacket slung over a leather chair, fingers still trembling from the final confrontation. He had wanted to come clean, had rehearsed it 100 times. But the look on her face, the betrayal in her eyes, it crushed him more than he'd expected. His phone buzzed with investor calls and board updates. But none of it mattered now. Not when her voice echoed through his every breath. He had come to break her walls. But he hadn't expected her to break his heart. 2 weeks passed. Zina became quieter. She stopped mocking the staff. She didn't leave the house unless she had to. For the first time in her life, her confidence felt fake. Because someone had seen her beyond the mask, and loved her anyway. One evening, her father summoned her to the study. He looked up from a folder with a smile she hadn't seen in years. Good news. Coreed Odebanjo signed the merger. The deal went through. You'll be seeing more of him soon. She froze. He signed. Under one condition, Chief Okoye added. That you attend the next board meeting personally. Zina's chest rose. Why? Her father shrugged. Said it was non-negotiable. Apparently, he wants to discuss the company's future direction with you. The boardroom at Odebanjo Holdings was high above Lagos. Glass walls, chrome edges, and enough power in one room to shift the entire economy. Zina stepped in wearing a navy jumpsuit and stilettos, her hair pulled back, her face unreadable. Coreed was already there, suited, confident, devastatingly handsome. But when he looked up and their eyes met, the room disappeared. She sat across from him. Silence. Then softly, why did you bring me here? Coreed leaned forward, voice steady. Because I wanted you to see me. All of me. Not as a driver. Not as a billionaire. Just a man. Who fell in love beneath your roof. Her eyes glistened. You lied, she whispered. I did. But every time I touched you, every kiss, that was real. She swallowed hard. So what now? He stood, walked around the table, and offered her his hand. We rewrite the story. If you'll let me. Zina stared at his hand, then slowly, she took it. That night, back at the mansion, Beneath the same roof where it all began, they found each other again. But this time, there were no uniforms, no secrets, no shame. Just bare skin, breathless laughter, and the kind of love that dared to grow in the most unexpected places. Just when Xena thought the truth had set them free, another storm brewed, this time, not in her heart but in her blood. A week after the boardroom reunion, things had felt surreal. Almost too perfect. Coreed was attentive, passionate, even tender. They spent late nights in private villas, whispered promises in silk sheets, and met each other's souls with reckless hunger. But then, Xena's father called her into his private study again, expression tight with concern. "Xena," Chief Okoye began carefully, "I had the company lawyers review the full merger contract again, just to be thorough." She raised a brow. "Why?" He slid a document across the table. "Because Coreed Odebanjo didn't just merge. He bought out every other silent shareholder, including the board's voting power." Xena's fingers trembled. "Meaning?" "Meaning, he now owns controlling interest in Okoye Enterprises. He didn't partner with us. He took the company." The room spun. Furious, heartbroken, and humiliated, Xena stormed into Coreed's private penthouse suite that night without warning. He opened the door, surprised, but barely had time to speak before she slapped him. "You bought me," she seethed. "You kissed me, undressed me, loved me, just to swallow my father's empire." "No," he said, eyes flaring. "I did it to protect you." "Protect me?" She laughed bitterly. "By taking everything we own?" Coreed stepped closer, his jaw clenched. "Your father was preparing to sell the company to foreign investors, cutthroat ones. They would have ripped it apart and left your family with nothing. I stopped it. I made sure it stayed in Nigerian hands. Yours, and mine." Xena froze. "You think I don't know how to play the long game, Xena? You think I didn't learn from you?" Her eyes burned with unshed tears. "So this was never about love?" He paused. Then quietly, "It started with control. It ended with you." She turned away from him, shoulders shaking. Not from weakness, but from the rage of loving someone who had outplayed her at her own game. Coreed didn't stop her this time. Because some truths are too raw to heal overnight. The days after the revelation felt like a slow death. Xena withdrew from everything. She stopped going to board meetings, ignored calls, refused to attend social events. Her pride had been wounded, but her heart had been annihilated. And the worst part? She still craved him, missed him, hated herself for it. One evening, while clearing out her closet in a fury of emotion, her hand knocked over an old jewelry box. It spilled open, revealing a flash drive tucked between gold earrings. Curious, distracted, she plugged it into her laptop. Inside were files marked with her family name, legal documents, emails. One folder caught her attention: Project Odin, Acquisition Plan. Her heart thudded. She clicked. The files were dated 6 months before Coreed ever showed up as a driver. Blueprints, internal memos, meeting minutes from Odebanjo Holdings. The entire infiltration had been planned before he ever laid eyes on her. He didn't just lie about who he was. He had orchestrated everything. Her knees gave out. That night, she didn't cry. She schemed. A week later, Coreed was called to a private investment summit in Ghana. As he stood under the golden chandeliers of a 5-star hotel, Xena appeared, flawless, poised, unreadable. "Xena," he whispered, stunned. She walked up to him, handed him a crisp manila envelope. Inside was a board motion, with over 60% of new shareholders now in her name. "Your plan was brilliant," she said, voice icy calm. "I just had to study the master long enough to become one." Coreed's hands shook. "You outmaneuvered me." "No, Coreed," she said with a smile. "I became you." And then she leaned in, brushing her lips against his cheek. "Don't worry. I still want you." "But now," she added, her lips grazing his ear, "you answer to me. Power, lust, love, revenge. All 4 lived in them now. And beneath every emotion, the fire still burned. 6 months later, the Okoye mansion was no longer a battlefield, it was a throne room. Zina Okoye sat at the head of the boardroom table, poised in ivory silk, her lips painted the color of old blood, her tone calm but absolute. "She holds power differently now," whispered one of the male executives to another. "Not like her father. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to." Because Zina had mastered something rare. She had been broken and reassembled herself sharper. Across the room, Korid watched her with quiet reverence, seated no longer above her, but beside. He was still the powerful billionaire, still bold, still magnetic, but there was humility now in how he looked at her. Like a man who knew what it meant to lose and be allowed back in. Not because of pity, but because she chose him. After the betrayal, after the revenge, after the silence, something stranger happened. They healed. Not perfectly. Not all at once. But in stolen glances. In late-night meetings turned into whispers. In arguments that turned into confessions, and confessions that turned into slow, aching kisses behind closed doors. One evening, under the same mango tree where it all began, Zina stood barefoot in a flowing gown, staring at the sky. Korid joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "You know what I think," he murmured. She leaned back into him. "That I'm still dangerous?" He chuckled. "No. That you're the most terrifying thing a man like me could ever want." "And why's that?" "Because you didn't just make me fall," he whispered. "You made me beg to stay." She turned in his arms, eyes softer now. "And yet you're still here." "I always will be." And as the stars blinked above them, and the house behind them pulsed with quiet luxury and untold secrets, they kissed again. Not as enemies. Not as equals. But as two people who had burned down everything they knew. And built something wilder, darker, and infinitely more beautiful from the ashes. Beneath her roof. Was never just about love. It was about power. About surrender. About finding freedom. In the one person who had the power to destroy you. And choosing them anyway.